Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for joining me today and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Dissidia, the show where you guys can expect to see the characters coming up, the events coming up, the bosses you'll expect to see and what sort of things you want to do in order to progress in the world of Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now this week we have two events to talk about. We have Lann and Reynn's Lost Chapter and we have Ciaran's event coming up this Thursday. Now, Lann and Reynn's event is actually live right now, so some people may have made decisions on what they want to do with this banner, whether they've pulled for it or if they've already cleared the event or anything like that. But I wanted to go over a few little bits of tactics, a few little bits and pieces to look at the banner itself, whether it's worth pulling on, and the same will go for Ciaran's event. So if that's something that interests you, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, everybody, please don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including my Twitter page. I've actually become a lot more active on Twitter over the past few weeks, and I'm actually starting to quite enjoy it again, as last week I was saying about how much social media frightened me, and starting slowly to get back on track with stuff like that. My Twitch channel, I've actually got a really exciting stream this Friday, which is going to be streaming Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizons simultaneously. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely check out the link in the description box below for that and come and follow me and come and join me while I play various other games, including Opera Omnia. And of course, don't forget to check out DissidiaDB.com for all things to do with Dissidia in terms of information. It's a fantastic site. And of course, don't forget to check out all of the other social media outlets, all of the YouTubers, all of the other content creators for Dissidia Opera Omnia, because they will appreciate your likes and your subscribes as much as I do. And finally, of course, don't forget to check out my Patreon channel if you would like to support the channel further. And as I stated within my Patreon channel, once per video, I will shout out a random patron to say thank you very much for your support, and today that patron is going to be Wolfie, who has been a patron of mine for a very long time, so a massive thank you to you. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is going to be Lann and Reynn's Lost Chapter event, and we will go over the banners, or the banner for it very, very shortly, which will feature Lann and Reynn themselves and Edgar and their realizations. But the boss actually, I mean, to be honest with you, this event actually isn't all that difficult. I'm sure a lot of people have already cleared it. I have already cleared it, and we'll be putting the footage of that clear onto Friday's Chaos Roundup this week. But honestly, depending on, there's a lot of characters you can use for this particular event. If you have Aranea, then you're going to absolutely blitz this event. She makes very short work of it. I used Aranea, and as well as using Faris, who is the other synergy character for this event, mainly because I just wanted an excuse to use Faris, and Warrior of Light. Warrior of Light makes this really simple, really easy. It's basically their main shtick is that as you damage them, they're going to ramp up the number of turns or the number of things they do within their turn in order to deal much more bravery damage, and therefore their bravery gets really high really quickly. They do have an AoE Brave HP attack, but it's not too threatening as long as you've kind of put shields up, you've got some sort of healing in your party. It's not that threatening. And honestly, there are so many different team compositions that I won't go into massively how easy this event really is, because I'd rather focus on the characters this time around. But you could take Lulu, you could take Onion Knight, you could take Yuri. Basically any character released in the last 2 months is going to be pretty useful for this. Penelo, Edge, there's loads of them. The only thing to bear in mind is that the bosses do resist magic, so unless you have an Imperialer to kind of counteract the resistance like Lulu, then perhaps don't bring mages to this event. But if you do have Lulu, then I've seen a lot of people bring Lulu and Ultimecia and absolutely destroy this event. But honestly, this isn't one that I'd be too worried about, and it being a lost chapter, the only thing you'll miss out on if you don't clear it immediately is a few tickets. You'll still get your nuggets, you'll still get your book thing, your pages for your book. It's not going to be the end of the world, but honestly, this event is really quite simple. So now we'll take a look at the characters on the banner for Lann and Reynn's Lost Chapter, and the first character we'll go over will be Edgar, who has received quite a rework when it comes to his kit. So Auto Crossbow now has a group HP attack after its use, which is really good. A lot of reworks tend to involve adding HP attacks to attacks that didn't already have them, but the main thing with Edgar's rework is the addition of a brand new debuff called Royal Pressure, and Royal Pressure is poison and makes it so that their bravery damage they take is increased. So that's kind of like a defense down, but on top of a defense down, so it's actually not terrible. So he also has his hit count increased on all of his attacks, so it's now 4 hits per attack on both drill and auto crossbow. So that's really nice. And then you get royal pressure from both of his attacks, and then if they already have royal pressure, then auto crossbow and drill get plus versions of themselves, which are slightly more damaging, and they have a lot more brave overflow. So auto crossbow gets 180% and is multi-target, drill it's 150% and is single target. So that's nice to know as well. And then when you've got his crystal 65 attack, it increases damage dealt by debuff to an enemy that's debuffed in a very similar vein to Faris. And then he also gets, with his crystal 70 passive, a brave overflow limit raise, and then his Bloomstone will also make it so that it lasts longer and he gets an extra use out of it. But in terms of the actual EX weapon itself, the EX attack itself doesn't get any kind of rework or anything, but it does get a realization. So what the realization does makes it so that it ignores defense when you're attacking somebody that's already been afflicted with royal pressure, which is actually pretty nice if you think about it. It's not anything game breaking. We have seen other characters with defense ignore before now, and it is pretty useful. But you also get an HP attack plus out of this at 1 out of 3, which is a brave HP attack which goes over to 120%, which isn't amazing. But if you have 3 out of 3, it does get 2 hits, which makes it kind of on par with what you'd expect from a character in this stage in the Chaos era. But if you 3 out of 3 it, you also get Chainsaw Plus Chainsaw and Chainsaw Plus turn into a 4-hit brave HP attack delivered 3 times. Now, a lot of really interesting things can be done with multi-HP attacking EXs, as we've seen with characters like Lulu, Squall, like plenty of characters, Noctis, there's loads of characters that do things like that, and they tend to benefit really greatly from debuffs such as Royal Pressure or Vital Crusher from somebody like Aranea. As a matter of fact, I think Edgar is actually a very good partner for Aranea because the stacking debuffs do work really well and you do a lot of damage that way. Although that being said, I don't think Edgar is worth going out of your way for, nor is it worth you spending 3 ingots on him, because I think there are just a lot of better characters out there than Edgar. I mean, there's just nothing really magical to write home about when it comes to Edgar. The way I see with him is that he's kind of like Sarah, but not as good. Like, he has more damage on his EX attack. He does do more damage in, like, he inflicts framed debuffs that reduce their defenses or makes it so that you can deal more damage. But Sarah does all that, and she also brave batteries. She provides buffs to the party. She's got crazy auras. Edgar does have auras, especially if you have his World of Illusions weapon, but they're not amazing. Like, you'll get attack and max bravery 20% across the board for your party. So honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Edgar. So now we come up to looking at Lann and Reynn. Now, Lann and Reynn got a slight rework as well to their 55 and 60 passives, but they're not huge. They are huge to their kit, but they're not exciting particularly. Basically, what they've done is they've added Mirage S duration +1 to Thunder and Geocrush, and Mirage L duration +1 to Blizzard and Water. That you get to keep up the Mirage S and L buffs as like much more efficiently. You start with it for a little bit longer. Originally, it was 3 turns, and now it's 4. So you get to keep up their Mirage buffs as much as possible, because you actively need those in order to be able to make the plus versions of their attacks, which are significantly stronger than if you didn't have them. Basically, the role that Lann and Reynn play is that they are very similar to, like, basically they're some of the best auto farmers in the game, in a similar vein to Yuna, and I'll get to why in a moment. But all of their attacks deal 100% AoE damage, which sounds ridiculous. It sounds absolutely insane. All of their attacks do 100% AoE damage. However, that does come with some drawbacks. So, for example, you'll see when looking at all of their attacks is that there is no Brave Overflow in any way over any of their kit initially. It's just not ideal in this day and age for Chaos Era. Like, I mean, they have quite high max bravery generally, which is good, and there are ways to mitigate that. So if you really wanted to use Lann and Reynn, you want to pair them up with somebody that can either raise their max bravery very, very heavily, so somebody like Ishtola, or somebody that can raise the Brave Overflow limit on their attacks, somebody like Rosa, for example. You know, or Faris even can do it as well. You know, Deuce would be another good one to pair up with them, because a lot of their attacks are all of their attacks are magic based as well. So Deuce will actually pump them up quite a lot, but Deuce herself isn't particularly commonly used either, so there's that to bear in mind. They do get, with their Crystal 65 passive or active ability, the ability to just set it so that they've got Mirage SNL straight away. So if you ever do run out, then it's not quite so bad. Then it would have been without that ability. But with their EX attack, their EX attack is actually very good. I will say that now. So initially, it instantly breaks everything. It does a 6 hit group brave HP attack, which is 100% damage to all targets. It gives them stack enchant, which is enchanting them with every element, or at least every element that they use, so not holy and dark. And then they get, with their realization, they actually get something called stack resist down, which is exactly what it sounds like, which is the same elements that they're enchanting onto themselves, they then imperil onto the enemies. So this makes them a much nicer kind of team player, because they have the ability to actively make it so that their resistances to everything goes down. So similar to Shantotto in that sort of respect, but they do a lot of damage across the board. And then their HP attack plus that they get from 1 out of 3 limit break is actually amazing. It's an HP attack plus that does 2 brave attacks and then an HP attack that can overflow up to 120%, but it also deals 50% splash damage to non-targets, and it extends their active buffs, so their Mirage SNL buffs, by another turn. So it means that you can use their HP attack plus and not lose a turn of their buffs, because you need those buffs up at all times, realistically. So if you're losing them, then it would be bad, but the HP attack plus makes it so that you can continually do that and not worry about it, and their HP attack plus is like one of the best auto farming things that there is. And honestly, if you don't have access to Yuna, you won't know how easy it is to have somebody that can auto farm that way. And Lann and Reynn can fulfill that role just like Yuna can. In fact, they probably do it slightly better because the animations are quicker. And when you're farming, speed is the aim of the game. So you want to be able to get as much in. Say you crack a 30-minute book for double items, and you're going for artifacts. Lann and Reynn with 1 out of 3 can just be taken by themselves and just go in. So that's actually a really nice thing to do. If you wanted to have access to a farming character, if you already have Yuna, then I wouldn't stress too much. But honestly, having an auto farming unit is one of the best things that I've ever had. I do have Yuna, and having her is one of the best things I've ever had in this game. Purely because it just takes away the dreariness of having to farm over and over and over again, because you can just leave it on auto. Get an auto clicker on your phone, and that way you can just leave it for half an hour and you'll come back and there'll be a ton of resources. And Lann and Reynn are going to be fantastic for that. In terms of actual chaos content though, if you're going to use them, then you need to 3 out of 3 them. With 2 out of 3 they get the stack enchant as soon as they enter the play, and then, God forbid, Sonic Fangs actually gets a little bit of Brave Overflow. And then at 3 out of 3, that Brave Overflow is increased to 150%, and the Brave hit count becomes 8, which when you're hitting multiple targets, because realistically you should only be bringing Lann and Reynn to a event that has multiple targets and multiple bosses for you to kill, that's gonna max out their bravery almost certainly. And if you need to make it so that their bravery can hit the max cap, so 99999. So if they're hitting, say, 500k, or 50k with their max bravery, then you can get to about 75k. So that means with just the 150% overflow. So that means if you can get another 50% overflow from somewhere, or slightly more max bravery from somewhere, then you can hit that 99,999 cap, and that way you're going to be getting the most out of Lann and Reynn. But if you can't do that, then it's not going to be quite as relevant. So now we come over to Layle and Ciaran's event, and I said Layle event first there because honestly, Layle is very much the star of this banner, and it's definitely not Ciaran, as I'll get to in a moment. But this boss is, or the boss for this event is going to be a kind of twin bear. They're like bears, but they are classed under the Humbaba sort of enemy type. So if you're worried about the chocoboards for the end of this month, the only enemy type you have to really worry about is Humbabas, and there's, in my opinion, no point in going out of your way and farming Humbabas now, because you might as well wait until Ciaran's event, because you can't finish the board anyway because you have to have logged in for 8 days, and by farming the co-op and Ciaran's event, you're going to clear the Humbaba part of the chocoboard anyway. So I would just wait for that, and then that way you haven't got to worry about it. But the boss themselves like to because they're Humbarbers, they like to do just like the needle shots and like regular HP attacks. But what makes them special in this particular event is they like to inflict a framed debuff that will drain your HP. So like it's poison, but it's not for your bravery, it's for your HP. So you want to make sure you bring some level of healer with you in order to kind of counteract that. But from having watched people play the JP version of this event, as far as I can tell, killing one of the Humbarbers straight away or first doesn't actually impact the second all that much. Because normally when you do an event like this, if you don't kill them pretty simultaneously, it can provide a world of hurt for you. But in this particular event, I've seen quite a few clears where people will aim for one of the Humbarbers first. Like they'll get a summon out sort of halfway through, make sure that they kill one of them off as quickly as possible, and then leave it so that there's only one left. So that makes the fight that much more manageable. And then that way you can start bringing your delay mechanics, things like that in. I mean, again, Aranea is going to be absolutely incredible for this event because she's incredible for every event. But equally, you can use Ishtola because she brings the healing, she brings the delay, she makes sure that you don't get broken. If you do get hurt from things like needle shots and regular HP attacks, then you've got something to counteract it. Penelo would work really well in a very similar fashion, but obviously she doesn't bring delay, she just makes it so everyone's so fast that nobody can do anything. Tifa would work well for this because she has the launch mechanics. Bear in mind that Layle is a featured character in this, so launching is going to be something that's very valuable. Layle himself is actually going to be very good for this event, and I actually really like Layle. I think that he is a character that brings something to the table that no other character can nearly as well as he can, at the very least, and I'll get to why as we go over his banner. But there's basically a lot of options for this particular event. It's not quite so much about Imperial Enchant as some of the other events have been. They're saying that Yuri is very, very valuable for this because of his Brave Shaving mechanics. He has the HP regen that you need to counteract the debuff. He just gets the job done, and I'll probably end up using Yuri in this clear. But we can expect this event to come out on Thursday. So let's have a look at the characters that are featured in this event and why I've decided that I've saved my EX tokens for Layle and why I won't be pulling on this banner pretty much at all. So the first character on this particular banner we're going to talk about is going to be Ciaran, and I am really depressed with Ciaran because as somebody who loves the original Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles and cannot wait for the remaster, Ciaran's kit is a mess. It is absolutely a mess. Basically, the point of Ciaran is to use his attacks to build up droplets of myrrh, which is very flavorful and I love it, but we all know how these stack-based characters like Terra go, and you can see where I'm going with this already. And the idea is great, because for every droplet of myrrh you've got, your entire party's stats go up, so it raises everyone's stats really nicely, which is something you really want. He also gets Crystal Caravan from his bash attack, which raises your party's attack even further. So it sounds really... I mean, if that was it, it would be really good. But unfortunately, his other attack, Holy Strike, which becomes a Holy Ra Strike when his droplets of myrrh cap out at 5... When you've got everything for all the passives and everything like that, you get more damage, you get 100% HP across the board. It sounds really good, but the problem with Holy Strike is that it takes the droplets of myrrh away. And it's like, you don't want them to go away, so realistically you've got an entire ability that you just don't want to use. And that's really unfortunate. You've also got access to 2 different HP attack pluses, which sounds great, but one of them is more useful than the other, and one of them overrides the other. So Ciaran's HP attack plus, which he gets while he has his Crystal Caravan active, which he gets from using bash, is a Brave HP attack that gives him more droplets of myrrh, which is great. We like that. That's nice. More droplets is good. We like to see that. And I mean, he's got, as you can see with his 68, he's got more auras and everything. And if he was just aura based, then it would be brilliant. And I really hope that his LD, when it comes out, fixes a lot of his issues, because I think that he could be amazing. But when you use his EX attack, with Memories of Caravan, your HP attack gets changed again to something called Soul Shot, which is just a larger hitting HP attack, which is fine, but you don't really want to basically the biggest problem that Ciaran has is he has a skill you don't really want to use. Like, yes, it's powerful, but then you've got to ramp up all the droplets again, and by losing the droplets of Myr, you then have to, like, he's taking up a slot in your party where you're just not buffing your party, and that's an issue. And then you have to, you know, Camlanort had a similar issue. His kit was just too complicated, and there were bits where he fell down, and Ciaran has very much the same issue. But Ciaran doesn't have the ability to paralyze your opponent every other turn. So, unfortunately, Ciaran's stuff just doesn't quite add up to what he needs to be. He's either selfish or he's support-based. He can't realistically be both unless you completely forego Holy Strike. And that's a bit of an issue. But his realization isn't bad. The other thing is that, like, he hits a maximum of 4 times with a lot of his attacks, so therefore we've already seen with Edgar that can be an issue, and he's not getting the job done. But he gets Memories of Chronicle with his EX, with just using a book on his EX, so he gets a bit more max Brave Overflow and attack, which is really nice. And when he uses his EX, he gets that regularly, and by the time he gets it for 6 turns, so you're going to get it used pretty regularly. And his recast rate is normal rate, so he will pretty much permanently have Memories of Caravan up as long as you've used the EX at least once. And then when the quest starts, I mean, if you get him to 2 out of 3, I mean, I am in no way recommending that you pour everything into Ciaran in terms of ingots and everything, but if you do, then his Memories of Caravan attack gets 8 hits, which is better, but it's proportionate damage as well. It's not 100% across the board. It's split damage, which isn't great realistically when we've just talked about Lann and Reynn, who every attack has 100% across the board, and Lann and Reynn still need a lot of support to get things going. But he also gets his Crystal Caravan, Memories of Chronicle, and droplets of Myr, 3 droplets of Myr out of 5 when the quest starts, and it improves the effects of droplets of Myr, which again makes you not want to use Holy Ra Strike once you've got 5 droplets, because then you're just going to lose it all and you have to pick it all back up again. Depressingly, his sphere is actually pretty good. You know, it raises Brave Overflow by 10% when, as long as you're hitting something that breaks something or is already broken, which I'm sure there are a lot of characters that can benefit from an extra 10% Brave Overflow. I really don't recommend using 3 ingots and a book on Ciaran to get it though. Now, fortunately, Layle is a little bit of a different story. And the reason that I have saved my EX tokens from the Dimensions End order to pick up Layle, well, originally it was going to be for Onion Knight, but I picked up Onion Knight. But like, Layle actually brings something to the table that no other character realistically can, at least until Keese comes out. And that's the ability to just launch on command. No other character can do it quite like Layle can. He did get a little bit of a rework, and it doesn't sound like much, but it's actually very nice, and it gives an HP attack to his Field Burst, and Field Burst was always a bit of a problematic attack when it came to Layle's kit, because it was just a brave attack. It didn't really do a lot, but you needed it in order to inflict the Force debuff, which made it so that the chase HP damage they took, so what chase HP means is there's an invisible value in the game that makes it so that so every time you attack an enemy, the value goes up, and every time you don't attack the enemy, the value goes back down again. And once it hits a certain threshold, and that threshold changes depending on the enemy you're facing, that's when you get the little, explosion mark come up on the screen, and that means that they can be launched. What the Force debuff does is double the amount of HP, of chase HP damage you deal, so that you're going to get to it that much quicker. So you kind of had to use it in order to get the Force debuff on all of the enemies, because it's a group attack. And that way you were able to kind of set things in motion, but it kind of just delayed things a turn because you had to do it. And now you kind of want to do it because you've got an HP attack on top of it, and you get the speed down, you get the Force debuff. It's got a Brave Overflow buff as well, which is really nice, and Energy Gain gets one as well. Energy Gain gets a couple more, just a much wider scope for damage, which when you're a launch-based character, damage is exactly what you want, especially when Energy Gain, as long as you've got the 35 CP passive from his weapon, can just make it so that you've got more damage on the board, you batterying your party members while you're using it, and that's really great. And the other thing that Layle has when it comes to doing that's really useful is his 65 passive, which gives him all Brave Rejuvenate, which honestly doesn't sound like much. It just regenerates bravery for the party. But when you're a launch-based character, and obviously all 65 abilities just give you a free turn straight afterwards. If you know you're going to launch the enemy the next turn, and, you know, Guy Bolg, which is his EX weapon, guarantees a launch, then suddenly giving everybody bravery doesn't seem so bad. And then as long as you've got his Bloomstone, you get 2 uses of that, and then basically all the 70 passive does, and all the Bloomstone does in terms of adding to the effect, is make it so that you get more bravery, which is good. It doesn't sound like much, but it's good. And then Guy Bolg itself is a AoE brave attack and single target HP attack, but it does more damage to enemies that have been inflicted with force, because you're going to have inflicted force upon them at some point. It's got a little bit of brave overflow, and it guarantees a chase sequence, and other targets get their chase HP maxed out straight away, so if you need to launch another enemy afterwards, you can. You also get Clavashian Heart, which raises party max brave and attack, which is amazing. We obviously want auras, especially on a damage-based character that's based on launching, and it makes it so that you deal more HP damage. And this stacks on top of the force debuff, so launching just becomes a big thing over and over and over again. And you also get some HP attack plus, which is just raises bravery before inflicting an HP attack. However, with the realization, now, Layle's realization doesn't actually add all that much to the Guy Bolg attack, but it doesn't need to, as long as it, like Charlotta in a way, Layle is one of those characters where they're mechanically extremely powerful already, and to add more mechanics onto their attacks would just break them. But getting their stats up to speed and making it so that all of the stuff is like tuned to where it should be, like his attacks having brave overflow, giving everybody bravery before he launches them, things like that, it does make a huge difference. However, what this does do is give you more overflow, more attack on him. He gets a brave HP and an HP attack plus, which then gives the HP attack plus more. It will do an actual attack, a brave attack, before inflicting the HP attack, and it's got brave overflow, which is always really nice. And then once you've maxed it out 3 out of 3, it massively increases the brave overflow limit, which again doesn't sound like, on its own, doesn't sound like much, but when you're a launch-based character, that will exponentially increase the damage that you deal with Layle. 8 hits is also a lot on a fast recasting EX attack. Like, you've got to bear in mind that you're going to be using Guy Bolg at least once every 3 turns. It's insane how much damage you can put out with him. If you pair him up with somebody like Tifa, who also launches, you're just going to keep launching them over and over again. And the other thing to bear in mind with launches is how good they are for your score. When you're going for a max score, you're going to really value having somebody like Layle in your party, particularly if you've got them with somebody like Penelo or Rosa or Ishtola, any kind of brave batterying character, particularly somebody else that can do brave batterying while they're attacking. So Ishtola, you're going to just do tons of damage over and over and over again until they just fall over. And it's really valuable. He also extends his own buffs by a turn, which is kind of nice because it means that you're pretty much permanently going to have a Clavashian Heart over. It is Clavashian Heart. Yes, I was right. I get confused between him and Yuri. Also, a very good partner for Layle because of the massive brave regen you get from his Clavashian Heart ability. And honestly, they just work very well together. There's a lot of characters that work very well. His sphere is good for himself and obviously not that great for a lot of characters, except maybe like Cloud or somebody that can guarantee more launches, because it raises your max bravery by 10% for 8 turns, which is quite a long period of time considering. But while I think Layle is really good, I don't think he's good enough to warrant pulling on a banner that has Ciaran on it. So before I go, I will discuss quickly the characters on what they do with when it comes to the Dimensions End mechanics and things like that, because honestly, I will be making a video on some strategies when it comes to the game generally, and honestly, you should be planning your pulls based on Dimensions End, because it is the hardest content currently available in the game, and therefore if you're already able to clear those things, then you don't need to be pulling on anything. Obviously take everything I say with a pinch of salt. If, say, Ciaran is a character you've been really excited for a long time and you want to pull in it, I'm not here to stop you. I can only give advice on what I think will work for some of this endgame content. And looking at the characters that are being released this week, so that's Lann and Reynn, Layle, Edgar and Ciaran, the only one of them that really gets used in Dimensions End is Layle, and he is actually better for opening up older Dimensions End tiers so that you can free other characters. The most common ones he gets used on are tier 2, tier 3, tier 6 and tier 9. So he will get used in tier 9. He's certainly not bad for it. Quite a few people have used him for it, but he's actually best at freeing up some of your other characters. So if you've got characters stuck in tier 2, 3 or 6, then perhaps consider taking Layle to those. Lann and Reynn don't massively get used in any of them. He gets you, like, there's a couple of clears of him for tier 9 when it comes out, but not many. Other than that, Lann and Reynn, basically the reason you'd be pulling for him is as an auto farmer. So if you do get him, I would recommend only putting the 1 ingot into him and not all 3. Ciaran, as far as I can tell, hasn't been used at all, really, in Dimensions End clears, or FEOD clears as they were known in Japan. He's unfortunately just not a very good character. His kit is very all over the place. It doesn't really work out very well. And Edgar, very similarly, doesn't really get used in anything at all. There's a couple of clears for him for early Dimensions End tiers, but honestly, if you're going to do that, then just take Layle for it instead, because he's just that much better for it. So, in terms of whether I feel you should pull on the banners that are currently available, or that will be available this week, when it comes to Lann and Reynn and Edgar, I personally might throw a few tickets into it because I enjoy Lann and Reynn as a character. I really love the auto farmers. If you don't have Yuna, then having an auto farmer, loads of people will disagree with me on this, and I know they will, because they'll say don't waste resources on auto farming, but having an auto farmer has made my experience with the game so much better. So if you don't have Yuna, then you may want to consider throwing a few tickets at Lann and Reynn, but I certainly wouldn't go in with gems because they are only okay, and they're not used very frequently in the hardest content in the game. It's very difficult to kind of make it so that they are usable, because you have to use certain characters with Brave Overflow limit for the party, things like that, and characters. Why put yourself through so much work when you could just use a character that doesn't need it? And then with Ciaran and Layle's banner, I personally wouldn't touch this with a barge pole. So I wouldn't ticket, I wouldn't gem, I wouldn't do anything with this banner, because while Layle is cool and very good, and I'm really pleased that I will have access to him because of the EX shop tokens, I wouldn't pull on this banner for Layle, purely because Ciaran is not a consolation prize. You will barely use him. It's just not worth the hassle, unfortunately. He's not used in Dimensions End. He's very rarely used in clears of his own event that I've seen online. You know, people just tend to avoid him, and I really hope for his sake that his LD really improves his kit, because I think he really needs it. That being said, if you already have Layle from when he's come out before, you might want to consider ingoting him. I think he's really good, and I really enjoy him. I just wouldn't pull on him, because April's going to have a lot of characters that a lot of people are very excited about. You're going to have, the likelihood is we're going to have Beatrix come back, we're going to have Leo and Galoof, and you know, there's a lot of characters coming out, Fran and Ash, that people are excited for over Layle. So honestly, you kind of have to just think, yes, Layle's very good, but is he worth my resources? And in a personal opinion, I would say no. So that's going to be it for this week in Dissidia. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and I hope this has given you a little bit of insight into what sort of things you can expect from Dissidia this week, in terms of banners, in terms of advice, in terms of the boss fights, all sorts of things like that. If there's any particular segments or anything that you feel would be beneficial to add to this kind of video, so things that are coming up in the week. I did think about doing chocoboards, but honestly with the chocoboards this week, there's only really one thing that isn't self-explanatory, and you get that covered in Ciaran's event anyway, so I didn't really touch on it. But if there's anything else that you would like to hear about on this week in Dissidia, then let me know in the comments below. And when it comes to the Chaos Clears themselves, of course, you can look forward to those coming from me on Friday for Chaos Roundup, so that will feature Lann and Reynn's Lost Chapter, which I have already done, and then Ciaran's event as well, so you can have that to look forward to. And similarly, on Friday, I will be doing my big stream for Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizons simultaneously, and I would very much love it, because I've worked really hard on this stream and getting it to work properly. If you could share it out, if you come down and check it out, I'll be pretty much on all day, I reckon, so it'd be really great to hear from you guys. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that bell for notifications so you guys can see all future Dissidia videos and everything else that I do. Thanks very much, everybody. See you soon. Take care.